Okay, guys, it's three after, which I realize is no time and burner time, but let's go ahead and get started anyways.
Sounds great.
Okay, so hello and welcome to our FirePony Creative Society Town Hall for October 2020. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ursula Sadiq. I'm the current president of the board for the FirePony Creative Society, and I'll be getting us started today. We'll start with the agenda. So welcome and thank you for joining us today at this town hall call. It is being recorded, so it will end up getting posted on one of our website properties and linked to other places. I'm going to go over the agenda, and then M4 will give us a brief webinar orientation on how to ask questions and that sort of thing. Then I will do some introductions for who is on your board. And then I'll talk briefly about FirePony Creative Society before handing the mic to Brian Baru, who will discuss the Playa del Fuego event. After Playa del Fuego, the next topic is Constellation, which will be presented by Caitlin O'Dwyer. Following that is the CASE program, which stands for Community Arts and Civic Engagement. And it's the umbrella under which many of our other programs beyond those two events are housed. And that will be presented by Millie McMillan. Following CASE, Miles Miner will discuss our finances and what's going on around land. Then Jordan Michelle, AKA EPIC, will discuss two of our newest programs, the Ranger Council and the Safety Committee. And then our final speaker will be Diane Svensson, who many of you know as Smiles, and we will talk about how to stay in contact, how to get more involved. After this agenda, and we'll do our best to keep each section short, we'll go into a Q&A session. Also in this mix, M4 will be emceeing our chat and our QA and handling our kind of behind the scenes tech. So let me go ahead and pass it to M4, and he will give us a very brief webinar orientation.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the 2020 FirePony Creative Society Virtual Town Hall. My name is Chris Vanghouse, also known as M4, and I'll be handling the Q&A for this morning's session. If you've never participated in a Zoom webinar before, it's a lot like a regular Zoom call, but with limitations on participants' ability to use their own cameras and microphones. This allows the hosts to be able to present uninterrupted, which is important since we have a lot to go over and we don't want to waste your Saturday morning. While each of our presenters talks this morning, you can submit your questions using the Q&A button along the bottom of your Zoom window. We'll use this to keep track of questions so we can answer them during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. If you have any trouble finding this, of course, you can message me in the chat and I can help you figure that out. Please try to keep questions as concise as possible to allow us time to answer as many of you and your fellow participants' queries as time allows. We only have so much time this morning and we don't want to go over by too much. If you'd like to speak your question in person, please say so and we can activate your microphone when it's your turn. For instructions on how to ensure your microphone works, you can refer to the information page located at firepony.org/townhall, which is coincidentally the same URL that you used to access this webinar. As a reminder, we'll be recording the webinar, so if you need to run, you can always submit your question and watch for it later once it's posted to our website. That's all I've got. I'll chat with you again during the Q&A. Now back to Ursula for introductions.
Okay, introductions of your board member. I mentioned many of our names during the agenda section, but I'll go over this again. First off, in the picture list is myself, Ursula Sadiq. And next to me is M4, or Chris Vanghouse, who just chatted a little bit to you about the webinar. Next to him is Brian Baru, who will be talking about PDF. Next to him is Caitlin O'Dwyer, who will be talking to us about Constellation. We have Millie McMillan, who will be talking to us about CASE. We have Miles Miner, who will be talking to us about finance. Miles is our current treasurer. I skipped over, Caitlin's our current secretary. Jordan Michelle, aka EPIC, will be talking to us again about some of our newer programs around safety and rangers. And next, Diana Svensson, who many of you know as Smiles, will be talking to you about how to get more involved. We also have Karnak, who many of you know, David Dugard, who will be joining us on this call and be available during the question and answer session. Karnak, Millie, Brian, and I all joined the board in June 2017, and we're all in our second terms. Caitlin and M4 joined in the end of Q4 of 2018. Epic, Miles, and Smiles are our newest board members, seated December 2019. As with any nonprofit, the board is an oversight body, and our function is to set policy and direction for the organization consistent with federal, state, and local laws, and to see that these policies are implemented so that all legal responsibilities are met. So we look after things like insurance and other legal matters, filings with the IRS, that sort of thing. The FirePony Creative Society board members, like all of our event coordinators, producers, and artists, are volunteers. We're not directly responsible for planning events. We are in place to ensure the longevity and sustainability of the events in the organization. This is not to say we won't provide coverage of some of the leadership roles during events, but this is not the primary board of directors role. Board of directors members serve a 3-year term and can re-up once for a total of a 6-year stint on the board. We expect to start recruiting for new board members at the end of this year. The topic of this town hall is where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. So I'm going to give a 30,000-foot overview in just a couple minutes about FirePony. We have a rich and long history as an organization. Other sections of this call will show more detail on different topics. We have roots going back to 1998. Where the first Playa del Fuego was held in Assateague with about 20 participants. By fall of 2001, it was moved to Odessa, Delaware, with around 230 participants. That event spawned 15 plus more years of events. Along the way, an organizational structure was formed in 2003. It was also called Playa del Fuego at the time. And as this nonprofit, we expanded beyond Playa del Fuego, the event. We hosted MALCs, we did civic art grants, such as Figma DC, the Philly Core Project, Grants for Catharsis. We hosted MALCs, which are Mid-Atlantic Leadership Conferences. And eventually we spawned a second event called Constellation in 2017, which became our fall event. With these other things going on beyond Playa del Fuego, the event, it made sense to rebrand the organization as some name other than Playa del Fuego. So hence FirePony Creative Society was formed. So we filed the paperwork that we're an entity doing business as FirePony Creative Society, changing the name from Playa del Fuego for the organization, again, not for the event. So in 2017, again, we spawned a Constellation, which became our fall event. It takes place in Elkins, West Virginia. And in the spring of 2018, we moved Playa del Fuego to Tamaqua, Pennsylvania. I'm going to, so that's kind of where we've been. That's our history from a 30,000-foot level. That's where we've been. This is where we are. It's 2020, and as we're standing here today, it's been, to say the least, an interesting year. We started the year by seating 3 new board members. And then in response to COVID, we canceled First PDF. And then in conjunction with the producers, we canceled Constellation 2020. And out of those cancellation, at least the cancellation of PDF, we did an intense pivot to have a very successful first virtual event, Virtual Del Fuego. It was the first official Burning Man regional. We had over 700 registered users, over 900 on the Facebook group. We consider that very successful. Then over the summer, we saw the country explode with demands for justice, and we've, as a board, had many long hours in discussion of what FirePony Creative Society could do on that front. We landed on a few things, including a statement of support, enhancing our website with anti-racism resources, and plans for more discussion and educational efforts, starting with this town hall, which is leading me into where we're going for next year around our seminars and our events. So 2021 and on, no one really can tell you what the future holds. However, we're cautiously optimistic that in 2021, we'll be able to hold our events again. So again, our events of Playa del Fuego, our events of Constellation, perhaps a Malk. We have definite plans for holding virtual seminars, and Millie will cover a little bit more of that when she talks about CASE. And we continue recruitment. There are many ways to get involved, and each of the sections will talk a bit about how to get involved, and Smiles will bring that home with her section all the way at the end. So that's our 30,000-foot view of where we've come from, where we are today, and where we hope to be going. I'm now going to pass the slides over to Brian Baru, who's going to talk to us a little bit about Playa del Fuego.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here with you today to talk about the Mid-Atlantic beach burn in the woods, Playa del Fuego. Slide. So where it all began, from 36 people on a beach in Assateague Island in August of 1998, 9 events were held in Assateague. Slide. The 10th event, which was 230 people at the first ticketed event, which was also our first in Odessa, Delaware, was in October 2001. They burned an effigy of a pony in remembrance of their time at Assateague and the wild ponies that can be found there. 32 events were held in Odessa. And where are we now? We are now in Tamaulipas, Pennsylvania. 2 events have happened so far, with the third being canceled due to the pandemic. Slide. PDF, we're one of the oldest and longest running regionals. We have a long history with both positive and negative experiences we learned from. We recently acquired permanent storage that enables many of our assets to be upgraded to long-term usage, which helps save us money. We also recently, as in 2019, we increased the percentage from tickets used towards art from 10% to 20%. We have a planning committee and a process that are open to the community to participate and observe. Slide. We have many assets to our benefit and a few challenges we face. Our current site lends better to growth than the previous site, with less neighbors and a site with reduced access for spectators. We have much less mud. We've had recent improvements to our planning and leadership procedures, and we're working to document and improve upon those experiences of previous and current leaders through our paperwork and processes. Challenge-wise, well, the location change results in some of our community just, being weary to go and check out the new site. Many felt attached to the old location. For some, it's a further trip. For some, it's closer. Growth is dependent upon our leadership volunteerism. No, I said leadership volunteerism, not volunteerism, although that's a big part of it. There is also the stigma of previous events and leadership. Some of our community is uninformed of the process and organization. And of course, the challenge of much less mud. So what's next? We are hopeful and optimistic for a 2021 burn. Of course, we're monitoring everything and more information will come. The members that we have are finalizing a revision of the PC rulebook, the Planning Committee rulebook, which we will make available to our community to view, and it will help get many more people familiar with how we do things in the Planning Committee. We're currently onboarding a new Planning Committee coordinator, Fiona, who is here as a participant today. And we're continuing to focus on recruiting new leadership. We're also in the early works of a theme camp organizer town hall, which will be held similar to this, but focused mostly on theme camps to help improve our relationships and our dependence upon each other. How can you help? Come participate, buy a ticket, and bring your additions to our community. And it's an old song, but volunteer, volunteer, and volunteer. Many people do, and you should not fear your potential. Seek a leadership role if you have experience. Make the challenges you experience known. Share ideas and solutions. And use the website, newsletter, and official Facebook page as a source of information. In terms of leadership, we've worked really hard, and I think we're being very successful in having a better network of leadership. We have some platforms we use for communication and as resources that we're trying to implement to share for future leaders to help make onboarding and being a leader in our organization an easier transition from the fear to the realization. Please use the Q&A button to add any questions you may have. We will address them during the Q&A section. I do have a review slide here of predicted role openings. You're welcome to just take a view there and see some of the openings that we may have. Some of these are certain to be open, some are still in question, but either way, it's just a hint of what's to come. Thank you so much. Enjoy your morning. I will be passing the mic off to Caitlin, who will be covering Constellation.
Hey, thanks, Brian, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Caitlin O'Dwyer. I joined the board a couple of years ago, as Ursula noted, and I have been on the Constellation Committee. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. After PDF departed our Delaware property, the first Constellation event took place in the fall of 2017 in Elkins, West Virginia at Pegasus Farm, which, some of you may have been to that property. It's beautiful out there. We love our owners, Bonnie and Mark. Many leadership positions were taken by the board members in 2017 due to that being a brand new event on a very short timeline. That's not ideal. Obviously, we try not to have BOD members in the leadership positions for the events, but we had to do what we had to do. A competition to name the event was held that year. 147 entries came in from the community. The board chose the top 5 list out of that 147, and the top 5 were voted on by the community. 47% of the votes came in for Constellation. Pegasus is a constellation, so sort of like PDF, we named it a little bit after our first location, things like that. So that's how the name Constellation Burn came to be. Slide, please. Every year that we've had our event, which is 3 years so far, we've grown either in population or in the actual amount of our grants that we've given out. You can see that here. You can also see one of our effigies. We haven't had a consistent effigy for any of the years, but one year we had a lyra, which you see on this screen. We estimate that about 2/3 of the participants at Constellation are organized in theme camps, either placed or unplaced theme camps by city planning, which is really neat because it gives every participant a chance to engage in the event by wandering through our Playa and visiting our theme camps. Sometimes they're tiny theme camps, just a couple people, and sometimes very large, elaborate theme camps with lots of events. But it's an amazing way to participate in our Constellation community. Slide. Our structure is different from the PDF structure that Brian referred to with the PC. Instead of the PC, what we have is producers who oversee our event and make high-level decisions about the running of the event. Our amazing producers are Emily and Toaster at the moment. Underneath the producers are our spheres, which you can see here in those large rectangles. We have community and arts, or CATS. We have communications, operations and logistics, and safety sphere. And the individual departments exist under each sphere. I'm not going to read those out. There's a lot of them there that you can see. We're going to talk a little bit about how you can get involved in those departments later. This structure allows for multiple levels of leadership opportunity. The meetings are held for our event instead of, we do have all hands level meetings, but we also have sphere level meetings. So maybe the CATS group has a sphere level meeting, so all the departments that work more closely together can have their own meeting. and talk about sphere-specific stuff. The board up there at the top, we really oversee the contractual, financial, and conduct aspects of the event, and that's it. We rely very heavily on our amazing producers who we've entrusted with running the event smoothly, and we stay out of their way for the most part, unless it comes to those 3 items. So one really important aspect of the structure is the leadership support. I loved what Brian said about not fearing your own potential, right? So when a participant steps up into a coordinator role, for example, there's a sphere lead to support that coordinator. Hopefully there's also a co-coordinator. That would be the ideal situation, right? If a coordinator decides to make the leap to sphere lead, they can be supported by the producer team above them, but they also have coordinators below them who do the heavy lifting. So the sphere leads can focus on sort of larger issues for that sphere and coordinate with other spheres. So we have a lot of support when it comes to leadership in this structure, and it makes things run real smoothly. Slide, please. So where are we going? We canceled Constellation 2020 in order to put the safety and well-being of our participants first, obviously. We should be at Constellation right now, and it's a bummer that we're not, but at least we can be together on this call, have some community happening this year, which is great. Thank you all again so much for coming. We're looking forward to Constellation 2021. The event's been different every year, whether it was the number of participants or the city layout changed. There's one thing I'd like to highlight, a change from last year. We started a volunteer appreciation department. It was the most staffed department, I believe. And the purpose of the department is to make sure our Rockstar volunteers were fed when they had maybe skipped a meal for a shift or had a hot coffee during a 1 a.m. guardian shift. Making sure our amazing volunteers are taken care of is incredibly important at Constellation. So we started this department and hope to continue it in the future. The best ways to keep in touch with Constellation planning is to sign up for the Shooting Star newsletter, which you can do on our website, constellationburn.org, or you can look for announcements on the official Constellation Burn Facebook page. There's always volunteering opportunities at Constellation. We have many departments, which you saw on the earlier slide. If you saw a department in that list that you're excited about leading or participating more in, please reach out to our producers. You can reach them down that email at the bottom there, producer@constellationburn.org. Furthermore, if you have an idea for Constellation, maybe it's something you saw implemented at another burn or something you just came up with one night at 3 a.m. and you thought it would be an amazing idea for our burn, reach out, because just having the idea doesn't mean you have to be in charge of it. You don't have to have the spoons to run it. No one's asking you to run the department, but no one can implement those amazing ideas unless they know about them. So reach out to our producers and let them know your very cool idea. One of our producers is going to be available to answer questions during the Q&A portion of our town hall. Please submit any questions below using the Q&A button that M4 told you about. I did want to mention a couple of opportunities for volunteering. Specifically, we have in CATS, we need leadership and general participation in any of those CATS departments would be great to fill out some of the leadership we already have there. In operations, parking opportunities for coordinator and co-coordinator. And in the safety sphere, we have a lot of opportunities for boots on the ground volunteers who are certified specifically in certified in first aid, for instance. So reach out if you have any of those certifications and you think you would be a good fit there. That is it from me. I'm going to pass it off to Millie to talk about CASE, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I am super happy that you have all decided to join us this morning. Again, my name is Millie McMillan, and I am currently on my second term with the board. And I am actually super excited to speak with you this morning about the Community Arts and Civic Engagement Program, which of course in this world of acronyms, we have nicknamed CASE. So to tell you a little bit about what CASE, or the Community Arts and Civic Engagement Program, is, next slide, sorry. is it's another way outside of our FirePony events to get involved. It is one of the committees that it's community run and managed, and we only have one board member on it, just mostly as a reporting structure back to the FirePony board. And it is meant to build on the vision and the mission of FirePony Creative Society. Next, please. The goal of CASE is, as written, is to support the development and execution of highly interactive, innovative, and local community-driven and focused art projects and programs in communities throughout the Mid-Atlantic region. So what that actually translates into is taking the ethos and the creativity of our Burner community and bringing it into our local communities and neighborhoods. For instance, bringing it to Baltimore or wherever you live, and being able to take the creative power and leadership and dedication of our Burner community to help heal and build better local communities around the Mid-Atlantic region. More specifically, what CASE is now is broken into 3 different areas. So 3 different programs. So art grants, programming, and training. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about each one of those. So first up is art grants. Next, please. Our community and civic engagement art grants is meant to support artists and other organizations around the Mid-Atlantic region to bring interactive art into our local neighborhoods. So it is meant to be a program that, as I was saying, helps us heal our local communities. Some of those examples are art projects that can be implemented into our parks, into vacant lots, and we pay a special close attention to art projects that involve the community in both the planning and the creation. And it could be also art projects. Some examples are maybe feeding the homeless, is a project to bring art into schools. The possibilities are limitless. And if you have any questions about what these kind of art grants are, please don't hesitate to reach out to us to get more information around that, because we're super excited about this program. The next subject is going to be, next please. The next is our programming. So we hope to offer a wide range of programming around equity, civic participation, engagement, and things like that. And I'll talk a little bit more about those in a few minutes on some of the specifics that will be coming up in the next few months. One of the things that we have so far, and Ursula mentioned earlier, is our Mid-Atlantic Leadership Conference. And this leadership conference is bringing together artists, is bringing together theme camp coordinators, it's bringing together community leaders, and everyone throughout our region to help share ideas and best practices and to inspire and learn from each other. And while this year, we were planning to have our 3rd Mid-Atlantic Leadership Conference in Philly, because of COVID-19, of course, that was canceled. So we do hope to have that program next year. Also, we are going to be talking about diversity inclusion efforts, such as around race relations, the town hall that we're having, and sponsoring things like Know Your Pronouns. And I'll get into a little bit more detail about that a little later. The next area, next slide, please, Ursula. The next area of CASE that our current focus on is around training. And around training, we hope to be able to provide resources and a network for our community leaders and our community members around the region. So that's going to include things like maybe learning tracks at the Mid-Atlantic Leadership Conference, or tools to allow people to network. And to get into a little bit more detail about that, learning tracks may include things like how to write art grants, or it may be how to program lighting. And so the idea is to share that knowledge. And for a tool, we would like to build a tool in the future that allows people to network. So if there's one art project that's happening and they may need someone to be a welder, or they may need someone to program lighting and things like that, but they don't have that specialty, a way for people to network and help each other out and figure out how they can share those ideas. Next, please. So what is in the works for CASE? As I was mentioning, with the fall grant cycle, we have a grant cycle for the community arts and civic engagement twice a year, in the spring and in the fall. So in the next few weeks, we should be opening that fall grant cycle. And one thing that I did want to mention that I did not mention above is that with the civic community arts and civic engagement art grant, what it covers a lot, but what it does not cover is art that is going specifically and only to our events. So we want things, if it's an art project that you're building for one of our events, but then you're going to also bring into your local community, install it as an installation there, that is something that we can definitely consider. But things that each event has its own funding for art for those. So this is meant to cover to get art out into the local communities. The next thing that we have coming up, and we would love everyone's input, is around, as I mentioned earlier, diversity programming, which we hope to begin in 2021, so starting in January. And so that's things around having dialogues, virtual dialogues online about things like race relations. I think it's about gender, knowing your pronouns. And again, the possibilities are limitless. And so we would love for you to get involved and give us your thoughts and ideas about what you want to see as a dialogue coming in 2021. And again, I mentioned the Mid-Atlantic Leadership Conference. While it was canceled this year, we do hope to actually have that again next year. And we would love involvement in that and planning out letting us know, what do you want to talk about during this conference? Next slide, please. Just to give you a little bit around the administration of CASE. CASE, as I mentioned earlier, is definitely community run and managed, but it does, like I mentioned, have the following reporting requirements, which is the responsibility of the board member that sits actually on that committee as well, to report back to the board about what's going on, any admin changes, and what the communication strategy is as well. The second thing around admin is funding. How is CASE funded? Where does the money come from? So the majority of our money currently comes from 5% of the ticket sales from all of our events, including Playa de Fuego, Constellation, and the Mount. So we actually get money back from that event as well. What we're hoping to do for the future is to help fund art grants and these community programs is to form partnerships in our local community. So partnerships with other art organizations or organizations that actually give out art grants as well, so we can help artists and help our creativity grow even further. Next slide, please. So as I have been mentioning throughout this, we encourage you to get involved. We want your thoughts, we want your ideas, we want to hear what you feel like we can do as a Berner community to make our local communities and neighborhoods better through art. So some of the details that we're looking for are people who are interested in creating and building programs and training, people interested in helping us get the word out, communication, helping us form those partnerships and do fundraising would be helpful. So let us know, or if you just want to share your thoughts and ideas, you can contact me directly at FirePony.org, or you can contact our whole team, which is case programs at FirePony.org. Next, please. So thank you for letting me share this information with you. And next up is going to be Miles on finances and land.
Morning, everyone. My name is Miles. I'm the current treasurer for the FirePony Creative Society Board. I've been serving with the board since this past December. Next slide. So as Ursula mentioned, both PDF and Constellation were canceled this year. PDF, we had already entered into our contract with the landowner. He was nice enough to let us out of our contract with no financial implications. His biggest concern was making sure he maintained our relationship and wanted to see us continue to burn on his property and to grow our event going forward. We also had entered into contracts with various vendors, but we were able to get out of those contracts with no financial implications. Constellation was canceled early enough that we did not have any contract signed, so there were no financial implications for Constellation. The way that that FirePony Creative Society is structured, we have an administrative fund that is funded through each of the events. This covers things like this Zoom call, our storage of the events infrastructure, just anything that we need to kind of keep the events and the board running from an administrative standpoint. Last year, the administrative funds spent, I'm sorry, don't have that number, but we also have an emergency fund. It's about $25,000. That's what we have set aside in the future, or for the future, in case things like COVID happen. Luckily, we didn't have to touch that fund this year because of being able to get out of the various contracts that we entered into. Next, I'm going to talk about the land search committee. So right now, the land search, or as everyone knows, the previous events had set aside a portion of the ticket proceeds to fund the purchase of land. So right now there's about $430,000 set aside in an investment accounts. And where we're at with that is, a couple of years ago during one of the board retreats, the board decided that the best thing to do was to do a feasibility study to try to understand what we should do with this money and how, if we were to purchase land, would we use it outside of the events, where the land should be purchased, and just basically what we should do with this fund. So where we're at with that right now is we decided that we needed to understand our financing capabilities. So I've been reaching out to commercial lenders, but haven't had much luck getting anybody to talk to me about what our financing capabilities are. So if anybody knows of a commercial real estate lender, can you please send me their contact information at mails@firepony.org. I also have been talking to some Arizona burners that are in the process of purchasing land. I'm not sure if their deal is final, but their big advice to me was that we should engage our community when we get to that point of process or purchasing land. So, reach out, find legal counsel, real estate help through the community, and just any, civil engineers, anybody that has an interest in this or the expertise, that we should leverage that knowledge within our community. So, if there's more questions about the land search, I would be more than happy to discuss that during the Q&A section. Next, I would like to introduce Epic, who will be talking about Ranger Council and Safety Committee.
Hi, everybody. So as was said, I am Epic. I guess I'll start actually by introducing the members of our Ranger Council. So our Ranger Council is a fairly new organization. This was founded between the 2016-17 burn season. And there were some changes that happened in our Ranger community. And during those shifts, we realized that one of the things that was necessary for us was to create more standard procedures surrounding rangering, including everything from our policies and on-site practices, but also especially the way that we organize recruited off-site. So I will start by introducing our members, and our first member that I'll introduce is Ranger Inkwell. Slide. So Ranger Inkwell has been a member of the Ranger Council since fall 2017. Inkwell has rangered at Loveburn, at Element, Firefly, and countless other regional burns. Slide. Our next member is Sauerkraut. Sorry. Sauerkraut is very vehemently not a Black Rock Ranger. What this means is that Sauerkraut brings a lot of experience and perspective that's based in like the regional burns, which is obviously very important to our events, especially for Playa del Fuego, which, like Baru mentioned, is one of the, if not the longest running regional burn. So there's a lot of that regional experience that they bring to the Ranger Council. Sauerkraut's been an FPCS Ranger Council member since its inception, and has also been a Ranger lead or co-lead at Constellation, Sunburn, Summer Isle, and in several other burns, including Loveburn. They've also rangered at Soak, Critical, Northwest, Element, Frostburn, and To the Moon, Emergence, a lot. Okay. They've been a burn perimeter lead and also quad lead a lot. Sauerkraut also is a professionally trained EMS and is trained in mental health, conflict resolution, emergency and disaster response, very experienced in everything on the event logistics side as well. And I will move on to our next member, which is Gandhi. Some of you know Gandhi. Gandhi is very well known in our community. Gandhi is a Black Rock Ranger, so brings a lot of that experience with the long-running Black Rock Rangering teams. Is well known and very active in leadership roles throughout Texas burns, participates and leads in the safety and ranger scenes in Texas, and is also a Houston regional contact. Slide. Last but not least is Wax. Wax has been attending burns since 2011 and has been rangering at regional burns since 2012, has been a lead ranger at PDF in the 2009 burn season. When not rangering, you've probably seen this if you've been to our burns. Wax is usually attending to one of his big, weird interactive LED sculptures that they enjoy building and sharing at burns. Slide. So what the heck is this Ranger Council? What do they do, right? So we like to think of the Ranger Council's purpose as being a group that is there to recognize, advise, and standardize. And so on the recognition point, I think what the idea is for this body to recognize issues that rangers are facing, and that can be our own rangers, on-site, off-site, but also to kind of address issues that rangers are facing in general, so either in regional burns or across the burner community. So this goes from everything in issues in recruitment, on-site issues, and then new developments, practices that are coming across the entire community. One of the ideas that's been recently discussed with our rangers is things like what they called, it's these yellow light camps or light camps. And so this is kind of the idea of camps that are set up throughout the community that are trusted camps or established theme camps that would essentially serve as touch points throughout the community so that rangers, instead of having to constantly be able to see every single thing on the playa, these camps would be points that people can go to that they know is a kind of safe area. So this is kind of the ideas that the council is able to recognize, discuss, consult with our on-site rangers, and decide if these are things that we would like to implement going forward or that are worth exploring more. And that takes me into the advise position. So this is, again, I think of advise as not just talking about things or mandating things, and this is not something the Ranger Council is designed to do. The Ranger Council works pre-event, off-site to kind of create these policies and discuss these solutions along with our Ranger leadership, on-site leadership, and along with the board to formulate the best practices going forward. And so the advising portion for me and for the Ranger Council is an idea of a collaborative effort to create solutions and new practices that rangers can employ then on site. And again, that takes me to the next point, which is to standardize. And so this is simple standardizing policies, procedures, and training across our events. As was mentioned earlier, FirePony now includes 2 different burns, Playa Playa del Fuego has been around since 98 officially, but as a organization, we have been a long burn with a very unique culture, and with FirePony and with Constellation now being a newer burn, there are different cultures across the two burns. And so a part of the mission of the Ranger Council is to standardize practices across both burns, so that way we have a stronger and bigger community of rangers to pull from, and that policies across both burns are not so dichotomous that we can't figure out what's going on at one burn, and so that rangers can't move from one burn to the other without having to learn an entirely new policy or procedure. And so part of the mission now is creating these procedures in collaboration with the board and alongside our ranger leadership from both burns, that we can make sure that across the burns, all our rangers are able to be in sync. Slide. So next I'll talk about the safety committee. This is also a brand new idea and committee that has been formulated by the board. We are actively recruiting for this committee, so if you know people or if you yourself are interested in being a part of this committee, please feel free to reach out. I will, in the last slide that I talk about, will have an email, and I'm sure Smiles will also mention about more ways to get involved in this. So again, this is a pre-event organization. The idea of this is to consult with the board and with our community on creating policies around safety. Slide. And so the purpose of the safety committee is to establish safety policies and standards and to engage in oversight of these practices. And it's meant to ensure the safety of all participants and volunteers, and also to reduce or eliminate any potential safety incidents, damage, or loss of properties that are utilized by FPCS events. This includes everything from fire, art, and performance, participant safety, which can be anything from stability of our structures, missing persons, trespassers, civil and criminal disputes that happen on site, city pathing and evacuation routes and procedures, sanitation and vehicle management and transportation. And so again, there's some overlap here, it might seem, with kind of like the Ranger Council and Rangers, but the idea of this is that pre-event we establish along with the board and all of our different spheres that are encompassed by safety in general, procedures, standard procedures, so that when any of these incidents happen, if they happen, or hopefully before they happen, we have clear procedures for dealing with these things, clear procedures for preventing these things, and clear procedures for mitigating any kind of incidents that we possibly have. And yeah, so that's our Ranger Council and our Safety Committee. Again, if you have any more questions, feel free to ask in our Q&A, but also feel free to reach out. Slide. If you would like to get involved, you can email rangercouncil@firepony.org. Our members are always willing to respond and answer any questions. If you're interested in getting involved, please, we welcome additional members. Same thing for our safety committee. This is, like I said, in its infancy, but something that we hope will help us going forward in making sure that we have the safest possible events across the board. So reach out to the BOD at firepony.org if you'd like to get involved. Thank you all. And I will pass it on to Smiles for participation.
All right, thanks, Epic. Hi, everybody, I'm Smiles. And I joined the board in December and then spearheaded the VDF project along with M4. But I'd like to thank everyone for showing up today and sharing your morning with us. So I'm here to talk about participation. And as you've heard today, there is much more to FirePony than just PDF and Constellation. And as you already know, everything here is 100% volunteer run. So what that means is we need participation from the community to get involved and make our event programming happen. So for PDF and Constellation, there are numerous levels of participation beyond buying a ticket and showing up. As always, you choose your own level of involvement. And whether that's a 2-hour parking shift during the event or being grand poobah or event producer, there is opportunities up and down the line. You can see here in this picture, this is Toaster, Brutal, and Chef Phil. Toaster is one of the Constellation event producers. Brutal is a parking coordinator for both events, and Chef Phil is a parking shift lead. And I got to tell you, that picture really made me homesick. Slide. So thank you. Slide, please. So as you've been hearing everybody talking about today, there are other ways to participate beyond the burns, and that includes the Community Art and Civic Engagement Program, the Mid-Atlantic Burning Leadership Conference, diversity programming, serving on a committee, or hosting a webinar or Skillshare event. So whatever level of involvement you might consider, there are really great people who are going to support and guide you on your way. Caitlin sort of talked about that structure. Brian, all the people involved in Playa del Fuego and the planning committee, everybody is really super helpful. No one contributes in a vacuum. Everyone who serves on this board or who serves the community at a high level was a virgin burner first. So, slide. So if you're not really sure how you want to participate, but you're beginning to suspect that there's something more to this whole burn thing than just a party in a field, I encourage you to start a discussion about your interest. And to make getting connected easier and to explore your options, we've created this simple form at firepony.org/volunteer. You've heard lots of email addresses and ways to get in contact. This one is sort of a catch-all that you can just check off the departments that you're interested in, and then we will connect you to the right people to start those conversations. So we've kind of been talking about, leadership and service to the community, and that can be a little intimidating at first, but the thing that I really want to drive home today is that it's worth it. It really is. It is rewarding, it's fun, the people are amazing, and they are welcoming, and they are passionate about this community. And truly the people that I've worked with in this organization are the best people I've ever worked with in both, my burn and professional world. So, so I really want to encourage everyone to take a moment to look at the form and fill it out. There's a lot of different ways to participate, some of which we haven't even gone over or discussed today. And so we can get you connected or talking to the people to see what is the best fit for you. So that's pretty much it. Check out our new form, and thank you again for sharing your morning with us. That pretty much wraps it up. I'm going to hand it on over to M4 for the Q&A piece. And be nice to M4. He's in San Francisco. He woke up at 7 a.m. for this.
It's a little bit early. I still haven't had my coffee yet, so I'll be getting there in a second here. Hello, and thank you all again for participating in this morning's town hall. We'll start off the Q&A with a quick refresher on how this is going to work. Any questions you have should be submitted using the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Again, it's anything that comes in we can see, so we may answer this in text if it's something quickly, but for all of the complicated stuff, we'll be answering your things live here. So we're going to be answering these on a first come, first served basis. Any questions already submitted via the form that we had posted on our website are going to be going first. So once those are done, we'll take care of the Q&A submissions that came in during the webinar. We may not have time for every question, so we'll go quickly so we can answer as many as possible. If your question is similar to a question that's already been submitted, we'll combine them and answer them all at once. If you've asked to speak or question yourself, please be prepared for when we call on you to enable your mic. You'll see a pop-up appear on your window that'll allow you to do that. So that covers pretty much everything. So we'll get started with our first questions here. All right, so this one came in from our forum. This is from airbath1@aol.com. I'm from Camp Burning Bear. I've been out of touch for a while. Can someone please bring me up to speed with some local burns close to Harrisburg, PA? Who wants to take that one?
I'll take that one. So yes, we now have moved PDF to within an hour and a bit of Harrisburg, PA. It has some RV parking. We miss Burning Bear and their great food events and would love to see them back soon. But I do want to mention that it's an interesting thing in our burner culture that sometimes it takes a while for the word to get out. It takes a couple of years for people to see a change has happened. People drift away, and it's one of the things that we count on, all our volunteers to do is to at least, mention and be a bit open about, hey, things have changed. We're continuing to grow, evolve, becoming a bigger and wonderful space. And just because people have stepped away for a while, we would welcome them back and hope that they can find out more about these events. So again, to answer the question explicitly, Playa del Fuego has moved close to Harrisburg, and we would love to see burners return to our PDF event. Does another board member also want to chime in on this? No?
I think one of the other resources that you have available to you is to go to the Burning Man website and go to the regional section, community section of the website. You can actually get through that community section of the Burning Man website. You can get contacts to your regional contacts as well as events within your area. So you can actually restrict your search down to the state you're in, and also check in the neighboring states. You can pretty much search where you're willing to travel to. And there it will give you contacts to the events as well as the regional contacts within that area who each individually should be able to answer any questions you have for you. But yeah, PDF is not far away from Harrisburg.
All right, we'll move on to the next question here. This one comes in from Fernando. This is a long one, so here we go. Burn culture is being eroded slowly and steadily with one-sided, decidedly left-leaning politics. Me Too, overtly Democrat, BLM, anti-due process approaches to censorship and cancel culture, etc., and encroaching upon our collective community. What can we do to ensure genuine freedom of expression within burn culture in the face of ever restrictive, shifting definitions of political correctness? Who'd like to take that one?
So all right, I'll tackle that one. It's a big question. And actually, since it's a big question, I think the best way to address it actually is to look at the overarching principles that guide Playa del Fuego and the burning community, right? And so one of the things obviously is, or I guess the three that I think of immediately are radical self-expression, radical inclusion, and civic responsibility, right? And so if I think of radical self-expression, the official principle is that it arises from the unique gifts of the individual and it's collaborating and group work, right? The other one obviously is civic responsibility, which is that we value civil society, we value our community members who organize the events, we think about public welfare, we think about endeavoring to communicate civic responsibilities to participants and assuming responsibility for those, for our events, all right? The last obviously is radical inclusion. And this for me is the biggest part of the burner community. This is one of the things that for me makes our community what it is. Radical inclusion, I'll read this one kind of, verbatim, is that anybody can be a part of our community. We welcome and respect the strangers and there are no prerequisites. To me, all of this comes with certain caveats. And that also means that if there is speech or expression in our community that serves to exclude people, that serves to go against these civil society ideas that we have, then we need to work to transform those into a more inclusive kind of expression or inclusive space. So while there are no prerequisites, one of the prerequisites to being a part of this community is that you also do no harm, not just to the earth that we are using and we're living on, but also to the people that we commune with. And so I'll say that the common answer is like your burn is what you make it. We include everybody in our community. However, if your job or your aim is to exclude the community in itself, which is created by the people that are in this community, right? Like it's driven by us. It's driven by the community at large. And so if you find yourself at odds with our community and the community consensus is one thing or the other, then that warrants a conversation that might also be an internal conversation for yourself. And so I think that society in general, including our community, is moving in a certain direction. And I don't think of this as an encroachment, but as an inclusion of more broad ideas and a chance for discussion in our community. And I think that we can engage in these discussions by looking at our principles and by speaking to each other more in respectable ways to see where this community is going and to make choices about the direction that we want the community to go. And so I think that if there are people that feel that there's an erosion happening in our culture and in our community, that what should happen is engagement and more discussion and maybe some self-reflection more than anything else. That's it.
If you don't mind, I would like to chime in a little bit as well, but only on the mention of anti-due process approaches to censorship. I do find that there were multiple community members that pretty heavy-handedly misunderstood or misinterpreted some of the policies we put in place in the past couple of years about artwork. And the fact of the matter is that we haven't had any art submissions that have had to deal with any of the I wouldn't put restrictions, but just a preemptive oversight that we put on to make sure that any art would not be offensive. The fact of the matter is that was created to deal with artwork that might be easy to misinterpret. And quite frankly, the people, I've had a few artists reach out to me personally who felt that the policy was problematic. And then when they told me what artwork they were talking about, I kind of laughed it off and explained to them, they don't have to worry. This isn't a policy that we put in place that every single piece of art will have to feel restricted. It is really just about art that is meant to get in your face and to address social issues that may need to have a little extra due process in the name of making sure it's presented in the right context. Without context and leaving things open to interpretation, some things can come off very hateful when it may not intend to be, and other things you could just tell it was meant to be edgy and hateful. So thankfully we have not had many cases where we've had to, not actually any cases where we've had to use any of the established policies that we created. But maybe it's because people are afraid, and I don't want people to be afraid to reach out and try to get an art grant, but more to understand that if you do have artwork that is touching on any of the social narratives or issues that face our country or individuals within our community, you should be willing to at least speak more to it and explain further, or at least be willing to have a discussion about what you're presenting to our community. That's all. So maybe rereading that policy and looking at it in fresh eyes more recently might help you to see that it's not anti due process or pro censorship, but it's just about making sure that our community is taken care of.
Thanks. So I got a little bit out of order there for a second. My form here shifted, so I'm gonna go back to a couple of ones we missed. Here's one, they didn't put in a name. How to stay in touch with the tribe in these COVID times. I'd like to take that one.
I'm happy to take that one. So we all know that it's challenging to be connected and stay in touch with each other. One of the ways that we can do that right now is doing like the programming that I was mentioning earlier through the CASE program. So if people can get involved and figure out and give us your ideas and things like dialogues that we can have where we can talk about race, we could talk about training things such as around art grants, so we can stay in touch at least virtually. and then a way to connect people to figure out if you want to get together in small groups. So it's how do we create virtual programming to keep each other connected, and how do we create networks where people can talk to each other outside of our Facebook groups and things like that. But how do we would love to see the community create ways to be a little more intimately connected during this time.
Can I
Add
tag
anything?
on to that?
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of want to just mention that, it may be not even these formal ways, but we have had talks or ideas about maybe hosting like some happy hours, but we certainly, it doesn't always have to generate from the board down. If you want to try and find ways to get more connected, we can certainly provide resources and help out if you just want to have, a monthly happy hour, right? Burners and invite people. So there's definitely those formalized ways that Millie was talking about, but we can also work with less formal, more social and ways to kind of get engaged and stay in contact and build community.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that, Smiles. That was one of the things I was going to mention, is that we've been kicking around the idea of having those monthly happy hours or, community gatherings virtually. And it's definitely something that seeing people ask questions related to that, not just that one, but I've seen a few others. It's definitely something that we want to try to establish better and put into motion soon. Go ahead, M4.
All into one big umbrella. I think what we're asking is what ideas that the community has to keep us connected and together, and what bandwidth you have to help make those things happen.
Yeah, certainly as
Thanks.
FirePony, we can help facilitate that. But as Smiles mentioned, it's not something that needs to come from the board on down. We would love to hear people saying, hey, I'd like to get the tribe together. I'd like to stay more connected. Let's brainstorm and do some things. Fortunately, we have a form for that. If you're interested, you could fill it up, fire up the form and reach out. And what's the next question?
This one comes in from Alessandro. I have a friend who might help us recreating the website, the main website. He's a web front-end developer, and I do work server side. I spoke to Smiles about this, and she said to bring this up as a question here. So this is actually something I can answer.
Mm-hmm.
So both of we don't really have a quote unquote main website. We have three distinct websites. One for FirePony, one for Playa del Fuego, and one for Constellation Burn. And they're actually all sort of managed separately. So Playa del Fuego, the group that organizes that burn, manages that website. Constellation Burn goes the same for them, and FirePony, we manage that ourselves. If you have any experience with, well, I guess like a number of different technology platforms, we're always looking for help with these things. I mean, Alessandro, me, we work together on the VDF. And if you're interested in continuing that help and working with us year round to help on any of the websites that we have, I could definitely get you in touch with the folks for each website to help contribute with that. You can contact me at m4@firepony.org. So I think that one was a pretty easy one there.
We had a comment in the chat from Emily. Constellation may be looking for a new webmaster, so definitely reach out to producer at constellationburn.org for more info about that.
Yeah, and like I said, each group handles their own. So yeah, for Constellation Burn, you definitely want to contact them.
Yeah, and I think what we need to do is basically have Alessandro bring this to the PDF planning committee, because I think that's what his focus was redoing the PDF website.
Yeah. I can say I can't speak for our current webmaster as he's not here. That's Ranger Hatter, but I can say that I'm not afraid. I'm welcoming to have our team get bigger and to have more hands and minds be involved in hopefully reducing the level of responsibility and stress to Hatter and the team that we have if he was thinking of PDF.
All right. So on to the next question here. This one also, there's no name. How likely will there be events next year? What are the plans for handling COVID?
I would like to take this one. Being as that PDF would be the first event of the two. I can tell you that our approach before we canceled PDF and my personal experience being an EMT in metropolitan New Jersey and seeing the horrific things that went down in my state and the things I've handled and witnessed firsthand really taught me a lot. And, you know, I want to remain optimistic, and I'm definitely monitoring everything that's going on. And quite frankly, information I get right now about what's happening case-wise won't affect our event in May. But as we get closer, we will have to monitor those things, continue monitoring, and to make a decision at some point. In terms of plans for handling COVID, what the status of that virus is and how it's affecting our population at that time will definitely have a large effect on what we would do. Some of the things we would have to do would be making sure that hygiene and participant protection is something that we make primary. This includes getting our access to multiple washing stations, getting access to more cleaning solutions, maybe even trying to reach out and seeing if we can get access to masks that we can hand out. There's a variety of things like that, as well as even working with our planning team in terms of implementing some kind of social distancing in terms of city building. It's a very complex question. I'll answer to a complex question, and nothing that I can shortly give here during this town hall, but I can definitely say that on the safety committee, one of the people that we now have, Erica Zomer, she's actually one of the people that is working directly with members of Congress about the virus and dealing with virologists and things of that nature. She's a great resource to keep handy. She's also my friend, but she's right now becoming a great resource for myself to get information, to get access to that kind of information where I can keep a hand on the pulse and also learn what the best practices are. But yeah, having witnessed what that virus did to my population in the city that I work as a firefighter EMT, I don't ever want to go back there again. And I want to do all that I can to protect everyone, not just in our community, but in our country from that, because it's horrific.
Yes, certainly as a board, we would not host a burn if it couldn't be safe. Now, determining if it is safe takes a lot of factors into account, governmental advice, our own conscience, other information we get from, leading authorities. We are cautiously optimistic that come spring, we can have an event. It'll become clearer as we become closer to the event. Fortunately for our spring location, we have a very agreeable landowner. We are not the only, but one of the only events that happen on his land. So it's not a booking. The land won't get booked up under us. So we have the luxury of waiting it out a little bit and seeing what the climate looks like as we get closer to that time. So again, cautiously optimistic. Who knows what the future will hold? We continue to monitor it.
Emily answered in chat saying that she can address Constellation if we want.
Yeah, you want to, can we promote Emily to a speaker so she can answer her around the Constellation?
Yeah, I'm working on that right now. All set. Emily, you should have a button on your screen that allows you to talk.
Welcome, Emily.
Great. Looks like no video though, so that's fine. So hi everybody, I'm Emily, one of your event producers for Constellation. I think in terms of the 2021 event, we are potentially more optimistic with Constellation than with PDF, just because of the timing of the event. We'll have more time potentially for the virus sort of potentially work its course through, particularly with potentially a vaccine. The main thing that I want to add to what everybody's said thus far is that one of the considerations that we made in terms of canceling Constellation was not just for the safety of our own community, but for the community surrounding our event. It's something that we didn't want to necessarily bring in a number of different people from various states, cities that we all live in, into an area that potentially didn't already have a significant outbreak or even number of cases. So it's one of the factors that we look at, but the main thing for us in canceling Constellation and in looking to the future and what we can do is also considering in terms of safety and other things, what can we do to ensure a safe event, not just for us, but again, for the surrounding community, and also maintain the integrity of the event. As burners, we like to have theme camps, we like to dance, we like to interact with people, cuddle puddles are a thing. And it's going to be a really significant question next year of, can we do a lot of the things that we associate with a burn, with a global pandemic. So there's a lot of consideration there. And specifically with, I know PDF had a virtual event. That was not something that we as the producers were interested in pursuing for Constellation. That may be different next year. Maybe we'll consider something else if somebody wants to get involved with that type of event for Constellation. You can always reach out to us. But right now, given that our event is in October and also on a site with access to running water, which is something different from most other regionals across the country, we are going to be approaching 2021 optimistically, probably starting to plan early in the year, looking at all the various contingencies that we may need to make in terms of attendance, ticket sales, city planning, those sorts of things to ensure that the community is our focus above everything else.
Thanks, Emily.
It was a very important point that you included with that, Emily, and it's not something I verbalized. I appreciate you making that point. It obviously was something that was a part of our conversation with PDF last year, although I didn't include it in my answer now, so I'm glad that you verbalized it. Thank you.
All right. Our next question, now we're moving on to Shimra here. Shimra asks, is there any interest of subscribing to a physical newsletter sent to your house in effort to stay more connected? Subscribers could send shout outs or life updates to the newsletter or share their artwork with the community.
That sounds like a me question. So, I like this idea. I like it better in email because we don't have to pay postage and collecting physical addresses. But I really do like the idea of having like a social newsletter that with contributors, contributions from the community. So let's take this offline and talk about it. I like the idea.
Yeah, I think it'd be very interesting to get community input to our next set of newsletter. I do. I see Brian in chat put something about, hey, we could support the post office if we started spending money on postage to send our newsletter out. We are a very conservative organization when it comes to our finances. There's a question that's been floating around about the big burn soliciting donations so that they can stay healthy and active in future years. We are fortunate to not be in that position. We have been very conservative with our money. We don't have paid employees. We have money set aside for contingencies such as this year of no events. The idea of spending a large amount of money on postage is weird for this organization, but doesn't mean we shouldn't look into it and see what those numbers actually are I see in chat the idea is maybe it's an art grant to get the newsletter out in hard copy to everybody. So certainly something we'll discuss. Like Mike Small says, we'll take this offline. Great idea. Yeah, that's my 2 cents. I'm sorry. We have about time for maybe one, maybe two more questions. So M4, do you want to rope that in?
Yep. So there's a few more questions here. This one, there's a no name. Are there plans to increase the ticket cap for PDF?
Oh boy, that's a question that's been asked the last 2 years since we moved to the new site. I can say that there is a contingency plan for when we increase the ticket cap, but we do not have a plan as much as we have things that we are required to reach before we can enact that plan. We need to feel that the leadership, the coordinators, and other volunteers we have at the event are staffed well and comfortable handling an increase in population. And as you saw in my slides earlier, there's still a few positions that are open or predicted to be open this upcoming year. Onboarding those new leaders and getting them comfortable in their role will. I'm sorry. Okay, Miles, you got hot there. It confused me. I'm sorry. But yeah, so I can definitely say that we don't have a plan, but I don't want you to be disheartened by that answer. We have requirements to enact that plan, and we're just looking to get to those requirements. We have seen a trend in the past couple of years of there being some great volunteer numbers. Unfortunately, we don't have nearly as many people stepping up to take on more of the leadership roles, and that's why I included content about that kind of a topic in my slides to make sure that you hear it. More people stepping up, like thankfully Fiona's stepping up to take on the PC coordinator role, from which I've been acting as a fill-in for the past 2 years. It's going to free me up to be able to do more for the board and more for the other roles that I partake in FirePony.
Yeah, so in particular, to increase ticket cap, we're concerned about safety. So ranger staffing, first aid staffing. There are other things too, but that's where to park all the cars, for example. But in particular, we can't have 1 or 2 people on call the entire burn running either our rangers or our safety. We need to fill in those leadership roles. And so again, there are a couple of other things. We had great volunteer shifts. For all the shifts were filled our last PDF, as far as the 2 or 3 hour shifts that people show up and sign up for. That was amazing. We just need to fill in some more at the higher levels so that we could feel comfortable hosting more people on the site.
And I'm going to go ahead and add, with Fiona moving over, just putting it out there, with Fiona moving over to taking Brian's role, the participation station volunteer coordinator role is essentially empty at this point. So I will be recruiting heavily for that, and whoever takes that role will be working with me as their mentor to get that up and running, since that's where I came from. I basically brought Fiona in, and then we just moved her on to bigger and better things.
But just some of the fun of volunteering. The idea is, it's not your job, it's just your turn. You learn these new things, you get involved, and then you can move on and try other things out. Again, very much encourage people to get involved at the leadership level. You'll have support. You're not going to throw you in and let you sink. We're going to make sure you can swim. And
it's worth it. It's worth it.
All right, we probably have time for, I think, one more question. M4, you got anything queued up?
So there's actually not really many questions left, mostly just shout outs. I can go into those.
No, I mean, it's always great to hear shout outs, and we'll as board members, we'll definitely read them. And it feels good to know that we're appreciated. And again, shout outs to everybody who joined this call today, and hope that you lean in some and get involved, and we'll work on keeping our tribe together and have a good 2021 and beyond.
Yeah. So
any other board members want to do closing remarks?
I want to give a huge shout out to M4, who had to get up at likely pre 7 a.m. to make this possible. Thank you so much. M4 always goes above and beyond any of the requests we make upon him or the community makes upon him, and this is more proof in that pudding. So big
Yeah,
shout
yeah.
out to M4.
Thank you.
Dragon and Shamira had asked if there was going to be a recording of this posted somewhere. I did answer, but I want to make sure it's on the recording of this as well, as that will be posting a recording of this town hall to our website and possibly other, maybe our Facebook or something. I'm not sure about that, but at least to our website.
Yeah, it'll be on the same page that you use to access the site. So if you use firepony.org/town hall, the video link will be posted there as well.
Awesome. All right, guys.
And I'd just like to add just one more thing, a shout out for Case. Whereas I know we are up in the air about our events right now, don't forget that another way to get involved year round and not only just bringing our burner community together, but bringing our burner community to our local communities is through Case. And that is something that we can probably do safely with any ideas that you have during these times of COVID. So do reach out.
All right. Anyone else? Going once?
I'm gonna just say thank you to the board as one of the event producers from Constellation for hosting this event. I just wanted to really give you guys a lot of appreciation from us and from the community. I know in the past there's been a lot of negative community interaction with the board, and I think it's really visible from my perspective, as well as from many attendees and other leadership, that y'all are doing really great work, and it's exciting to see where the board is going, and some renewed engagement and excitement behind all of the various things that FirePony is involved with.
Thank you, Emily. That was great to hear. Thank you very much. All right, and on that note, I think we're going to wrap this call. Again, one more time, thank you all for participating, and we hope to do wonderful things with you all in the future. You have a good Saturday. Take care.
Enjoy your weekend, all. Bye, everyone.
Enjoy,
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Love you guys.